Hi, Corkies.
Hi, Corkies.
We
You
have
are in for a treat. We haven't had a guest in a minute, but today we have Brittany Leary, who is a life and executive coach. Yeah, so she's gonna get into what that means because it sounds real fancy.
No, and it's not.
We want all our corkies to sit up, listen up, and get ready for this hopefully life-changing interview with Brittany. So welcome.
welcome.
Hello,
Brittany.
ladies. Hi, Corky.
Thank you for joining us this morning, Brittany.
No, thank you for allowing me in y'all's space today.
Oh, yes.
No problem. So my first question for you, Brittany, is what is the difference between a life coach and a counselor?
I like to break it down to the simplest terms, right? So the most familiar form of personal help is counseling and therapy. And a lot of times in that process, we work on deconstruction and reconstruction. If you agree or disagree, let me know, because you guys actually do this day to day. So with life coaching, you go from therapy or counseling where you reconstruct, deconstruct, and reconstruct. And then in life coaching, you go into this building process, a discovery process, if you will. Now, good counselors also coach, but they don't necessarily separate their counseling and their coaching skills and techniques. So the client just thinks they're in therapy. When you go to a life coach, things are very specific. Did it break up? I'm sorry. Okay. Things are very specific as far as us focusing totally on where you are right now and where you're going. When you go to a counselor is trained and licensed to diagnose, work on dysfunction, get you to function. And also, if they are good at what they do, they're going to coach you into your future self. The difference to me mostly is the fact that therapy and counseling focuses on who you are and how you got there. Life coaching focuses on who you are and where you want to go. If that makes sense.
Yes, that makes lots of sense.
Ooh, yes. I love that. Love that. That was especially that last. What intrigued me about what you just said was you said good counselors, right? Because they're all life coaches and counselors, right? They're not all created equal.
They're not all good.
But you're absolutely right. But you are 100% spot on, because I know even in my program and in my teaching, they do only teach you up to a certain spot, right? But if you're a good, which I think I'm good, you realize, okay, you can't just leave the person hanging. You have to do some follow through, right? So I love that you said that, right? That there will be components of the life coaching in the counseling sessions, but if that person doesn't need all that other stuff that we give them, then life coaching is what they need. So I love that.
Yes.
That's real good. Good stuff. Look at you. All right. So what has been the most difficult thing about being a life coach so far for you?
Let's start out with the challenges. All right. So I have a 14-year career experience in counseling in some sort. I've worked in HIV, STD, and now I currently work in substance abuse with a little hints in mental health here and there, just because they kind of come together. The hardest part for me transitioning from counseling to life coaching is disconnecting from my clients' results. Disconnecting from my client results helped me stop trying to solve the problem for them. Because I feel like in counseling, we're giving them resources and tools to a certain extent. Sometimes we even have to show them what to do in order for them to follow and do the things that we feel like they need to do in between sessions. With life coaching, our main focus is not solving the problem and making sure that we're always putting the responsibility of creativity, the responsibility of insights and intuition on the client, because they're the expert of themselves. So a lot of times in the beginning processes, because I am in a program for life coaching, in the beginning processes when I was being mentored and supervise, my biggest issue is I was asking a lot of what questions because I was involving myself in problem solving. I wanted to get to solutions. And in reality, that's basic coaching at its finest. But if you're going to elevate to a professional coach or a PCC level coach is what they're calling it in the International Coaching Federation, you have to dive into the who a lot more. And for me, it was like, okay, coach the person, not the problem. Coach the person, not the problem. So I really had to transition from coaching the problem or counseling, because it really turns into counseling once you start focusing on that problem, because now they want advice. They want help finding solutions, and professional coaching teaches you not to do that. So I had to really transition out of coaching the problem so that I can really learn about the person that was sitting in front of me and what they wanted and how they wanted to do it. Because there's really a space where they're the expert. There's no hierarchy in the relationship. And they guide that train the entire time. They are the conductor. So my biggest challenge this whole time has been making sure I'm not in problem solving mode and not leading the process. Two biggest challenges for me.
Wow.
I
like that.
Space always kills me. She's like, ugh.
It's a lot, because you know what? And I love that question, because a lot of times we're only as good or as effective as what we know to be our limitations, right? And so you're very clear on what that is. And so my face was, what are your limits? Like in my head, I'm thinking about what my limitations are, which is good. This is what this conversation is supposed to be about, right?
Yes.
For life coaches and counselors to like, okay, what are the differences between the two of us? And you know, how can we stretch and grow? And then also how can we collaborate and work
coexist?
So, yeah.
Because one of my biggest missions is us coexisting, because I feel like one without the other is okay. And if you get a great counselor or a great life coach, you might excel. But I feel like them together, especially if you have therapeutic issues, I think it accelerates the process.
Yeah. For the longest, I didn't like y'all.
No, but that's common. That's common. I don't take no offense to that, because I started out on one side. I 100% understand it, because a lot of counselors feel like we do that. So what are you actually doing? Are you actually capable of doing what you say you can do? And for me, that was big, because I am very big on education and learning. That being educated doesn't mean you have to be degreed, but you do have to seek knowledge, and you do have to seek knowledge from great sources if you want to be great. So my whole outlook of being a life coach was, at first, I could do this based off of my experience, right? I've been counseling. I have all these tools and resources that I've been using for the last 14 years. I can do this, and it's not regulated, so I don't have to be certified. After starting this process and running into a couple of walls, I was like, I'm going to school. It's a necessity for me to stand out. So if I'm going to stand out, I need to be educated.
Absolutely.
And that's the difference between that life coach that a counselor don't like and the life coach that a counselor does.
I like how you explain that, like, a counselor doesn't have to be a life coach. Like, they don't have to do the coaching if they don't want to, but we have life coaches for that reason, because we're better together. Like, you can do your life coaching, we can do our counseling, or we can do both. But if we don't choose not to do coaching, then we have you guys to help kind of stand in for that gap.
Exactly. And that is one of my biggest missions for my coaching career, is to make sure I am filling in a gap, especially because I understand counseling enough to know the difference between what's a therapeutic issue and what's a coachable issue. I want to be that person that is going to be able to guide you to the right person. If you come to me and you think you need coaching, and I know you need therapy, or I know you need another level of counseling because your issue is therapeutic, it's dysfunction, it's past related, and you need to uncover and unmask some things, I'm referring you directly to a therapist. I have no desire to do the work of a counselor or a therapist. That's not my desire. My desire is to take you from where you are and move you forward. And it took me going through my own journey to figure out that that's what I wanted to do. So I really do appreciate this conversation, because like Heather said, I ain't like y'all at first. Most counselors still don't.
I think the fact that you refer out when needed makes you a good life coach, right? Like,
Yeah.
like you're a good life coach because you know your limitations, right? And what that client needs. And it may not be you, maybe somebody else. And that's good.
Yes, I'm very aware. And that was a big part of my process too. Learning what my judgments, assumptions, and biases are. Understanding what I clearly do and provide, and delegating elsewhere.
Yes. I like that.
Yes.
Awesome. Ooh, y'all. You accepting clients right now?
Yes, I am accepting clients. I finished school at the end of July, and my books will open up a lot more. So right now I have a spot for 3 people.
Okay. All right. We'll get your information at the end. We got to get
yes, ma'am.
spots filled up. Is there anything in particular that led to you specializing in the substance abuse counseling?
I fell into it, to be honest. I was already a counselor by experience. And when this position opened up, it opened up through a friend. Somebody offered it to me because they knew I didn't want to stay at the hospital system that I was in. They knew I was looking for growth. So they say, hey, you want to try this? They were like a recruiter for an agency. And the job came up and he offered it to me. It's actually one of my best friend's husbands. And when he offered it to me, it was like $4 or $5 more than what I was making. It was like that answer to my prayer. I wasn't even thinking about the substance abuse part, to be honest. So when I got into the field, the company had tuition reimbursement. So I decided to go ahead and do the CAC, the Certified Addiction Counselor program, because now in my mind, I'm thinking about what's the next step already. I'm always trying to figure out which way is this going to go. And I've become more comfortable with letting things go and like going with the flow, which was also a struggle. So I went into it thinking, okay, it looks good. If it goes through, then I'm gonna just do it. So I went through the program, and I thought I was gonna go back into the facility and do like one-on-one with clients and stuff, but I ended up staying in corporate. I feel like I serve the clients better in my seat. It's a lot to that, but I think I serve them better now in the space where I work, and I do utilization review. So my job is to assess the clinical, make it make sense, report it to the insurance company in detail so that I can get the patient covered. I feel like with the way that I think and the way that I work, I serve the client better sitting in that spot, because whatever the counselor puts in or doesn't put in that chart, I have the knowledge, I have the know-how to figure out how to make that make sense and get you what you need. Because a lot of people don't know, but unless you're a good counselor, things start looking the same after a while. All the notes.
Yes.
All the clinical, all the processes. Things start not being so individualized after a while. So I, you know how you had them assumptions and judgments. I judged the substance abuse field in general in a way that they're not treating the patient as a whole person. So a lot of me seeking a different route other than counseling was because I grew tired with them not serving the whole person. And I realized early on that if I was to go into counseling and work for a company, that I was going to have limitations still on treating the whole person. So a lot of what led me from counseling to life coaching, I know that wasn't the original question, was me wanting to treat the whole person because of the experience that I had with substance abuse counseling.
Wow.
Yeah.
Brittany, is there anyone who motivates you or something that motivates you to keep going and continue on with what you're doing?
Yes, something and people. My family and friends, I have a very solid village. We all kind of took on this journey at different times, but respectively in our own times. and we've supported each other throughout that, which is helpful when it comes to motivation. I'm not really a motivation type girl. Motivation is what they say, fleeting, right? So my whole focus for the last few years has been creating habits that's going to always be there when I get lost or when I'm down or when I'm off track. Something that is always going to be there to remind me, hey, this is what works. This is what you need. And that's why you feel this way. So get back on track. So creating habits for me has been something that I've been intentional about for the last 3 years to kind of keep me on track when motivation isn't there. But one thing that I've had some insight about in the last 3 years is that death motivates me. I've experienced two very close people pass away unexpectedly in the last 3 years. And the first time I lost my cousin, it motivated me. I'm trying to not get emotional. You see me, my eyes going places. I try to focus on the thought that I'm not gonna always be here. So I got all this stuff in my head, all this stuff that I share with my friends and my family, but it could help so many more people if I would just speak up. Or I have all of this stuff in my heart and I feel like I should share, but I'm not sharing because I'm thinking about what people would think of me if I didn't. And losing those two people elevated my motivation in another way each time. The first time I created a podcast, I felt like it was necessary to move forward. I had been doing research and working on plans for almost 2 years. The podcast idea came around in the end of those 2 years, but after I lost him, it was like, okay, you got to get moving. Time is not on your side. Time is not on anyone's side. We have a limited amount of time. You have to make good of it. And then I lost my little niece, my goddaughter, this past December, and it pushed me even further. It pushed me even further into the thought process of you don't have all the time in the world. You don't have time to procrastinate. You don't have time to sit down and think about how you're going to do things when you already have these ideas. I'm literally getting them downloads all the time. And it's like, you're not going to share them with anybody? You think you're just getting them for fun? So I really am motivated by knowing that I don't have all the time in the world. And if what has been placed in me is for me to do, then I need to do it. No matter how many times I fall off, no matter how many times I have to start over, I just know you got to keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Life is short.
Yeah, it's very short. Very short.
All right. Here we go. It's starting. Let's take a breather.
You gotta breathe.
Everybody gotta breathe. Let's breathe. Okay. I'm not crying today.
Don't cry.
I'm not
cry.
doing this with y'all today.
My eyes be watering for no reason.
I'm looking at you, and then I look up because the way I have y'all, and then I look up at Ari. I said, I'm not looking at her. I can't look at either one of y'all.
It's okay. We're good.
You almost got me there with your stories about your cousin and your niece.
Well,
yeah, it was.
When it was a little person. I was like, oh Lord.
Yeah, because my cousin was 26 and she was 16. So it was a lot. It was a lot, and she was like my baby. I don't have any children, but I helped her mom raise her.
Yeah.
So to lose her in the way that we lost her to murder. It took me a few months.
Jesus.
And through those few months, I still was in school. I was still doing my necessities. And I feel like the only thing that kept me going in those moments was thinking about her being here while I'm in class, or just saying, Mom, did you go to school today? Did you do this? Or do you do that? And that's what keeps me like, she was watching it. She was excited. I have to keep going because she's gone now and I'm still here. I have to make do with the time that I have. So it's crazy because I never knew to articulate that the way that I did. One time I was on Instagram and Amar La Negra. I don't know if you know who she is, but she's like a Dominican artist. She was on Love and Hip Hop Miami at one point. So that's how I got introduced to her. But she does a lot of like speaking engagement, podcast stuff. And one time someone asked her the same question, what motivates you? And she said death. And I said, what? But as I heard her talk, I was like, that's exactly what it did for me. So she was the first person that helped me even articulate that that's what I was being motivated by. I didn't know how to articulate it in that way, but I literally was pushed forward out of grief.
I love.
Wow.
So you learned it from her, and now I'm gonna say I learned it from you because I didn't know
Yes,
how to articulate that either.
I did not know how to articulate like that. And when I heard her say that, I was like, that's exactly what I'm doing. That's exactly what I'm feeling. So when I heard that, I was like, well, now I know what's going on.
Yeah, I get that. So like, I get that. I definitely get that. I've done more in the last 4 years than I've done in probably
it felt like my whole life. And I know that's not technically true because, you know, we do things in the time that we're supposed to do it. But I feel fulfilled. And I think that's the difference between the 32 years before. Is now that I'm working and I'm intentional about what I'm doing, I feel fulfilled. I actually feel good about what I'm doing. And that's the difference between just operating in your day-to-day, letting the world tell you what to do, than you versus you operating day-to-day doing exactly what you want to do and working towards what you want to be. And that's why coaching is so important to me. That's exactly why coaching is so important to me, because we have like, my eyes are getting teary, I'm not gonna cry, but we have so many life experiences that are built to be hard, to be difficult. They're not going to not be difficult. We can't make the difficult go away. But if we have sufficient support, we could get through anything. And I've realized that in the work that I do, I work in the reentry program as the resident life coach right now. And I have clients that have significant family support, and I have clients that have none. And that person that has none needs me the most. And that's why I do it, because I understand and realize that no matter, even if you have a huge family, if you don't feel supported, you're going to do it on your own. And nobody needs to do it on their own. It's just not as effective as it could be if you had support. And for me, life coaching lives in a supportive space, a safe and supportive space that I want to be able to offer to people who feel like they can't find that anywhere else. Yeah. Don't cry, girl. Stop looking at me with your teary eyes.
I'm a soldier. Watch.
They ain't fall, but it's watery, baby.
Jesus. So what has been the toughest life lesson for you so far? Life lesson for you to learn.
No, I'm gonna tell you, and it seems broad, but it's very important for someone with my personality type. Being able to surrender has been my biggest life lesson. Because as we've been talking about it, the motivation of death and all of the things that has become more clear to me in the last few years, all of it surrounded around me being able to surrender. Like, I can't control certain things. No matter if I feel like I was wronged or not, it was done and it's already done. What do you do next? Living in that space of resentment will have you spinning in circles. And I was tired of spinning in circles, honey. Who wants to keep spinning in circles? Some people unconsciously decide to spin in circles all the time.
Yes.
I consciously decided that I wasn't going to do that anymore. And it's a constant fight. It's a constant fight with every new trial, with every new flow. It's a constant fight. I have to remind myself every single time that you have to surrender to the process. I have to go through the emotions. I have to figure them out. I have to go see my counselor if I need to. I have to do all of the things. But the bottom line is surrendering must happen in order for me to keep going. And that has been the hardest life lesson that I've had to learn. It's worth it though.
Wow. Beautiful.
Brittany, are there any books that you like to recommend to our listeners? Any books that have motivated you or helped you get through tough times?
Well, my number one book is the one that you guys are reviewing right now. Anybody who has ever seen me as a client, my friends, my family, they all have the 4 agreements in their possession because of my recommendation.
Wow. Just so we can see.
In 2018, I read that book and I'll never forget. It was so intriguing to me that we were getting ready to go to like a slumber party, an adult slumber party we was having at my friend's house. and we traveled from Palm Beach to Tampa. And in the car, I read the book aloud so that I could get them intrigued.
I like that.
So that I could get them intrigued. And because to me, when I read the 4 agreements, it was so powerful because it was so easy. Like it was neuroscience, but in layman's terms.
Mm-hmm.
So everything that I was experiencing in life that I was resistant towards, everything about that resistant lifestyle that I was living, the 4 agreements addressed it.
Yeah.
It addressed it in a way that made me say, girl, really? Is it really this easy? Like, are you really in your own way? That is what 4 agreements did for me. The 4 agreements made me ask the question, are you really in your own way? Because I think when we're in that resistant process, we blame people more than we take accountability and responsibility.
Ooh, yes.
So when I transitioned to that surrendering side and I decided that I didn't want to live that way anymore, it took a lot of accountability and responsibility to live in a flow. Like you have
a lot
to
of the abilities that people don't want to have. They don't want to function in that.
Nobody want to function in that.
Yeah.
Nobody. That's why the percentages of self-aware people is so small.
Yeah.
Like it's under 10%. Depending on where you look, it might be 10, 7, 3. But the percentage of self-aware people is so small because don't nobody want to fight that fight.
Yeah.
That's a big fight to fight too.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really big fight to fight. So that's my first book recommendation. Another book recommendation, if you're trying to build new habits, which I strongly suggest, would be Atomic Habits by James Clear. That's a really good book. It teaches about habit stacking and habits and why they're important, how to execute them, and etc. And another resource I want to include that's not per se a book, but if you are a learner and you like to be educated, if you have Audible has like crazy amounts of webinars and like from Harvard Business School on effective communication, like anything or any characteristic or anything that you identified as a problem and you want to fix, you could probably find a resource from educated experts, if you will, on those things. And if you are capable of teaching yourself, you can find resources in Audible that come from professors, schools that are accredited and very popular, very, very, very much so creme de la creme. Ooh. And you can get this free education. Like I learned that in my process to not limit myself on what and how I can learn. And books are great, but some people don't like to read. So we got Audible. So you can listen. And you might not like the structure of a book and to just sit there. You want to hear like a lecture. Lectures are available in those same platforms, podcasts, great resources. And if it doesn't give you the answer, it plants the seed for you to go do the research and find the answer. So just taking the limits off and being able to explore different options for different issues. If you want to be self-disciplined, there's plenty of books on self-discipline. Like, you just got to allow yourself to be able to explore.
Good.
So, Brittany, as far as the 4 agreements, is there one that you have struggled with the most or felt like that was really hard for you to kind of work through?
If I'm being honest, there was something in each chapter that I struggled through. So,
yeah.
What'd you say?
That's honest. Yeah.
No, it was something in each chapter, each agreement that I had to examine a lot closer in order to get to the next one. So that and being impeccable with your words, I believe the gossiping and the idea of black magic was a big one for me. Even the thought of how we created our own thoughts or created our thoughts growing up and how a lot of it was influenced by people who we saw to be authority and the people who we looked up to, whether it be parents or people in the church or people in the community that you felt was your leaders or the people who were supposed to guide you. Even thinking about that helped me challenge my values and beliefs, because now I'm like, okay, these aren't my thoughts. Maybe that's why I'm in so much conflict. maybe I need to move forward with trying to figure out what my needs are and what my thoughts are. So, and that definitely helped me understand not only how I affect people or the energy by what I say, but how I'm affected by what people say to me and how much I was taking personally. And it literally I had to fix that first before I could transition to the taking it personal part. And then when I got to taking personal, I was a defensive person mostly all my life. And my defensiveness came from, I feel like somebody trying me. Like, are you trying me? Because if you try me, I hope you know I can fight. Either it be verbally, physically, emotionally. I know how to pull the knife in and twist it. So for me, that defensiveness was that whole idea of people are doing things to me. And once I got to that chapter, I had to take some time to kind of figure that defensiveness out, figure out what the core issue was, because I wasn't going to stop taking things personally until I figured out why I feel like I need to fight every fight, or why I feel like I need to defend myself against every person. Never assume. I thought I was a fortune teller for most of my life too. Yeah, I thought I was a fortune teller. You know how when you are naturally intuitive and you trust your intuition? I'm an Aquarius. I trust my intuition. I'm a well-oiled one though. I put in a lot of work to balance it out. But a lot of my personality was, I've seen this before. I've watched you do this, so I can almost assume what you're gonna do next. Or you don't have to tell me what's going on, I can see it. And in reality, that's not true. You can make up what you think gonna happen, or you can influence that outcome to happen.
That part. Yeah.
But you really can't just be telling people you don't know. You are only the expert in yourself. And that's what I had to realize, is that I can't be assuming. I got to ask questions. Life coaching helps me in that process too, because that's how life coaching operates. You don't assume in life coaching. We have this term we use called double clicking. And you can say a word. You could say, I want to have more fun in my life. My job is to say, how do you define fun? Before I assume what fun was. Just a simple assumption that you want to go have fun. But fun, once I assume, is from my perception. It has nothing to do with you at that point. If I assume that I know what fun is to you, instead of just simply double clicking and saying, hey, what is fun to you? So that we could clearly define what you want to set as goal, so that you can actually get this goal accomplished. Because I can say, oh, you want to have fun. And if I don't act from that point on, I'm operating from this perception that I know. And that's just not true. It's just not true. So that definitely took me in that direction for that. And then doing your best. Oh my God. The negative self-talk that I had to combat to grow up. It was a lot. And me understanding that my best would be this day, one day, this day, another day. Like we was talking about motivation being fleeting, your best is fleeting, depending on what's going on around you, what mood you in, what's happening. And I had to understand that to even stop talking to myself crazy.
Yeah.
Because I would have downtime where I just wasn't motivated, or I just couldn't do it, or I didn't have mental clarity. And I would tell myself how much of a failure I was, or how much I wasn't on point, how much I wasn't giving into the process as much as I should, because I didn't do what I said I was going to do this day.
Right.
Or I didn't accomplish the goal that I said I was going to accomplish this day. And even if somebody bailed out on me, the negative self-talk was, is this even for you? Like everything you're doing is falling apart. Could you have done more? You know, like I would go through that process, but it almost turned into me bullying. So it was like that doing your best and being impeccable with your words kind of combined at that point, because I'm talking to myself crazy. And it shows in your behaviors and your emotions. So as much as I'm talking to myself crazy, of course I'm not growing.
Absolutely.
I'm stuck. I'm super stuck because I'm only going to be able to execute or produce as good as what I'm feeling or how I think. So it was a lot. I know that was a lot, but it was a lot.
No, I think the book is a lot. For it to be such a small book, it's so impactful. And just like you, I don't care what you come through the door for in my counseling practice, go get the book. Download it on
It's a
Audible.
necessity.
Like, that's what we're going to do first. I call it foundational. Like, we got to clean the slate, get you some good foundational principles, and then we can put in some work. But until you get that, practical, really easy, right? Some things it's easy, but when you start trying to do it every day, it becomes hard, right? Because we function from that default setting of, the gossiping, what we were taught. And I think it's extremely hard for people of color because the things that were taught to us still taught and ingrained. And if we go against some of that stuff, then we are looked at crazy. I think you mentioned earlier, we're being disrespectful or whatever. And some of that stuff, yes, it may have functioned very well for them whenever back in the day, but it doesn't serve any function now, right? And so it's hard for people to kind of undo and let go of some of that stuff. But it's definitely necessary if they want to be fruitful and live a good life, like,
and grow up.
Yeah,
we gotta grow up.
And definitely grow up. Yes. For you, right? You're on our podcast as a guest, but you have your own podcast.
Yes,
and
I
so
do.
What was the inspiration behind you starting your own?
I have a love-hate relationship with social media. Let's just start there. So like you guys, I have to do these things myself. And I'm not an Instagram girl for real. Like, I like to post in my stories quick, fast, kiki, no structure. Nobody's expecting nothing there, right? It's when the expectation comes of what's supposed to happen and algorithms and numbers and things of such. I'm like, because this week I'm motivated and next week I'm not. And then I don't operate in great energy of batch content because I feel like it's manufactured, right? So I'm like, I have a love-hate with social media. I love YouTube, consuming YouTube. So I learned so much. I'm entertained so much. So I thought maybe YouTube would be a route, which it still will be in the future. But podcasting gave me a space where it wasn't overly produced because I didn't do visual at first. I only did audio. I can get in my car because I recorded in my car my first season. With my hair all over my head. Nobody sees me, but they hear me.
Yeah.
So my first instinct was to get out of this space of that love-hate relationship I had with creating content and find a space where I felt comfortable to create. So podcasting for me, with me being primarily introverted, was great because I didn't have to worry about eye contact and all of the things that you have to worry about when you're doing this visually. It was like, just get in there, talk, be clear, be concise, and get to the point. And I was literally talking to myself. So it was like, cool. But the other side of that was visualization. Like, I wanted people to, not visualization, but visibility. I wanted people to hear me. I wanted people to know what I was doing. And I wanted people to know why I was doing it. And I felt like creating a podcast and the structure in which I did for my first season was important for me because I wanted to share my journey. I wanted people to understand that I did this first. I'm not asking you to do anything that I'm not aware of or that I can't relate to. I'm not doing anything that I just learned out of a textbook. Like, I went through this and I wanted my first season to reflect that energy I brought on my friends and family. We talked about personal relationships, personal things that we've gone through throughout this growth journey together and how it affected us all. And for me, podcasting just felt good when I did it. I think I did maybe like a guest speaking one on my friend's podcast that I worked with. And I felt it like then. I was like, oh, this is okay. I kind of like this. When I heard myself, I was like, oh, I don't sound as country as I feel. My ratchetness don't show as much. When I get to talking about the stuff I love, you can feel it. And I was like, okay, Then I went through that process, but everybody trying to get a podcast now.
Mhm.
So I had to debunk that thought in my process because everybody is, but still the numbers are still showing that we still one of the lowest places to get information from as far as when you compare it to news, TV, social media. Podcasting is still very much so not as wide. I think it's like 2 million active podcasts in the world. And that seems like a lot, but it's like billions of people in the world. So it's like, okay, I'm comfortable here. For me, it was just comfortable. It felt right. So I was like, okay, I want to create visibility for my brand. I want to create my brand at this time is me, really. So I'm like, I have to talk more. I have to be more present, and I have to allow people to understand what I'm doing and how I'm doing it and why I'm doing it. So podcasting just kind of it happened, and I enjoyed it, and it's something that I encourage people to do when they're trying to solidify their space in their niche or their niche, however you want to pronounce it. I already told y'all I'm country. And just be able to even just for yourself solidify your voice. Because I know a lot of people who struggle with confidence, who found confidence in podcasting because now they know they're not alone. They have viewers and listeners who agree with them and they can communicate and have like-minded conversations. And for me, it was a very good place to be.
Mm-hmm. That's so cool. That's so it reminds me of how Ariel and I kind of started off with doing the podcast because we were doing something completely different. Doing lives on, I think it was on Facebook. I think we alternate on Facebook and Instagram, and then we just liked talking and hanging out. So just doing that, I think in the beginning of the pandemic. We're doing that because we're both counselors. Let's help out. Let's give the people, some tips and stuff. And I'm like, this is so much fun. And so
it ended up being so much fun.
Yeah.
It ended up being so much fun. I really, really enjoy podcasting. It's one of those things that I would probably, once I'm done with all of this stuff I have going on right now, when I get back to it, I'm going to loosen up even a little bit more with structure because it's something that I could do. Sometimes I can do a 5-minute talk. Sometimes I can do a 30-minute talk. Like I'm going to take some of them limits off myself even when I go back into it, because even quick talks like you see on TikTok can be uploaded to the podcast for people to listen to on their way to work.
Right.
Optimizing content and being more freer with how I create with the podcast is definitely next on my list to attack.
I like how you brought on like family and friends to get other perspectives and people who you like are really close with. That's really cool. Like,
yes.
Get on there and bond and share and grow together and like teach other people as well.
Yes, because those relationships are important. And I feel like a lot of people struggle with relationships in today's time. And I want to show people that you can disagree with your friends and still be friends. You can actually not agree with everything your friend does and still be a support to that friend.
Yeah.
So it's just the reality of, like we don't have to be on the same page all the time, but can we support each other? Can we show up for each other? At our core, do we care for each other at the same level? And that's just really what it is.
Absolutely. I love that. Yeah. You can't be my friend if we can't like be real and honest.
Yeah. Like we ain't doing that.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of brutally honest. I'm better with it now because I'm more conscious about the power of the tongue.
Yes.
So I know that my delivery can be a little harsh sometimes if I'm not aware of how I'm feeling. I understand that people hold my word valuable now. So I make sure that I'm clear about what I'm saying and why I'm saying it before I say it, because I don't want to be the person that deters anyone.
Right.
That's not nowhere on my list of goals. Nowhere on my list of goals is there for me to stop you from doing what you're supposed to be doing. Or like I like to say, get in God's business. I ain't trying to get in God's business. I got enough business of my own that I got to worry about. I ain't got enough power to be doing all that.
I love when a client tells me like something you said a month ago just stuck with me, or like you need this and like I carry this forward, and I'm like, oh really? Like you listened and like remembered. Like I get surprised sometimes almost, like your tongue is really powerful and things that you say do stick with people. So really be careful with what you say and how you say it.
Yes, I have a learning partner. He's a business owner. He owns like multi-million-dollar business, but we're both in this program together. And he tells me all the time, he says, Brittany, I was doing this and I could hear you in my brain saying, everybody isn't the same. Everybody doesn't think like you. Most people think differently. You are an odd person. And he says that, and I always laugh because he's not the only one that says, I heard you in my brain.
Yeah.
And me understanding that is rewarding, and it's also consciously making sure that I'm doing good with it and my intentions are good with what I say, because now I understand that people hold on to what I'm saying. Like you said, and I feel like you probably identify with that as a counselor. The reward in doing this work is when they realize their power, and when they realize that they have made changes and that they are committed and confident in keeping moving and increasing movement even. That's where my reward comes from. So me being intentional with my words and being conscious about what I say and how I make people feel is definitely important for me. It's also important because if my intentions are good, it gives me room to challenge people as well. Because a big part of life coaching is challenging your clients. And some people are very uncomfortable with challenging their clients. I'm not. And I think it's because I am a little rough around the edges. that I'm comfortable. You say you don't have a problem?
I don't have that problem.
But I bet you know people that do.
I put that in my consultation. If you have a problem with being challenged and you don't want a counselor who
I'm not your coach,
hold you accountable, let's just stop.
I'm not your coach.
That's part of my spiel now in my consultations.
Yeah. I think part of being a good counselor though, or a good life coach, is to challenge your clients. If you don't challenge them, what are they
getting?
Yeah.
If you tell me something in session 1 that I can connect in session 6, first of all, you're going to be surprised I remembered it. Second of all, you're going to be like, wait, how did you connect those? I'm connecting them, but how do you see them? Because now I need you to understand how you're contradicting yourself. Or I need you to understand how this won't get you here. So what's the discrepancy? We got to figure it out. Yeah. So a lot of that is new territory for coaches who aren't either trained or who hasn't had any background in services, human services or social services. It's a very big challenge for people.
Because I've been an intern myself. I've been, in supervision, been out on my own, and now I'm a supervisor. And I've seen it time and time again. It's either you were meant to be in this field or you're not. Right. And I think that we know, like the person knows, the counselor knows, the life coach knows whether or not you're really supposed to be in this field. And if you're not, you're doing yourself and all the clients that you come in contact with a disservice, because it really truly is a weight. Like I was texting Ariel Thursday or Friday, I can't remember what day it was, but literally this is what happened to me. I was at my mom's scrounging around for some boots and came across something that was triggering to me, right? But I had a session in like 30 minutes. I had to hurry up, capture that emotion, get myself together so I could be present for my client. Thank God something happened, right, where I didn't end up seeing her, right? She had to postpone it to a later time, so I had even more time to get myself together.
That was God.
How often do we have to do that, right? Carry the weight, like keep ourselves in check, keep ourselves covered in order to help all these people, right? And I don't think if you're not in it for the right reasons, that you really have the stamina and the emotional capacity to do it and do it well.
And people ask like how we even do it. And to me, it's like about compartmentalizing. So like we have our own problems, like Heather said, going on, right? And people would probably never know because we put all that aside for a session. And like I see 7 people every day back to back with like a 1 hour break in between, like 1 hour of the day. And I have to like put aside that last person's session to go to the next session. I can't think about what we talked about last hour. It's time to go on to the next hour. So you really have to learn how to put things in different places in your brain and not hold on to things.
Yes. And if I could add to that, just from personal experience, having a routine and ritual for yourself. I feel like if you're made for this, you know the importance of taking care of yourself before you take care of other people.
Mm-hmm.
So what I've implemented is a morning routine. Everybody is a morning people. I'm barely a morning person. So the struggle is real. But for me, it's important to take care of myself before I walk out the door, because not only am I going to represent these people and getting them the services that they need at my 9 to 5, as soon as I leave there, 9 times out of 10, I got to go into life coaching mode. Mm-hmm. So I have to compartmentalize my day into 4 pieces almost every day. Mm-hmm. It's take care of myself in the morning, journal, read, meditate, do some work, listen to a podcast, whatever I can do in the morning. For reference, you asked me about books, 5 a.m. Club, Robert Sharma. He has a very cute outline to what a cute morning routine will look like. I call it cute because everybody ain't a morning person. So it's not structured and built for everybody. But I feel like the structure of the 20/20 rule that he has, no matter what time of day you choose to do your self-care, it's a great structure. 20 minutes moving your body, 20 minutes with some personal development. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and 20 minutes with some kind of self-care. So to me, the structure of it all is what led me to just be able to figure out how to take care of myself before I go into that space. Because in reality, that's very difficult I'm an empath. I feel everything. I had to learn how to balance that in order to be a great coach, because I have to serve myself. Like, I have to make sure that my cup is at least 75% full. Yes. Before I can give myself to anybody else, because no matter what, you don't have to take your clients' problems home. But unless you're just doing this just to do this, you feel them. Mm-hmm. You understand them. You want them to find those solutions, and you want them to get out of this space of dysfunction that they're in. Even if they're not in dysfunction and they're just stuck and they want to move forward, you want them to achieve that. Sure. And in order for you to make sure that you're not doing it from a self-serving place, you got to serve yourself first before you go serve somebody else.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That'll preach.
Brittany, where do you see your career in the next 5 years? Where do you see yourself?
I would love to be full-time coaching in 5 years. Hopefully before 5 years. I really want to coach full-time. And I want to be able to have the freedom to work when I want to work, how I want to work, and with whom I want to work. I feel like everybody's not your assignment. And another part of me going into life coaching was me being able to say, our energies don't connect. This might not be a good fit for me. And you don't really get that option in counseling much when you work for people. Mm-hmm. Not when you individually working for your own by yourself, but when you work for an agency or a facility or a hospital, whatever it is you're doing, you usually have to kind of have a structure to how you get clients. They give them to you, you work with them, and you move on. Mm-hmm. And for me, I want this process to be as effective as possible. So me being able to work in the way that I envision is very important to me. I have little goals that I have on there. Like, I want to be a Forbes coach. I want to be on the Forbes Council in the next 3 years. I just want to be great.
Ooh, yeah.
Like, I want to just keep learning. I want to keep working, just to be able to be great at what I do. Mm-hmm. Is really all I want. And whatever it is, even if I venture out into something else, I want to venture out into like journals and planners and stuff like that. I just want to be great at it. And I want to give myself room to grow in it, not to be perfect when I start, but at least to get it started so that you can grow into being great. And that's really what I'm looking at right now, like being great all around in all life areas that are important to me.
I love that.
That's cute. You know, I'm all for being great
and just doing your best.
Yeah, doing my best and being great without the limitation of public opinion, because that's important. Because people will limit you to what they think you should be. If you tell them you got this big idea and it ain't something that they feel like they can reach, they'll tell you, you sure? You think you could do that? Yeah, I know I can do it. And that's the biggest part of this journey, is knowing that you can, despite what anyone else gonna tell you, because they gonna tell you no.
Yeah.
They gonna tell you no a lot.
Yeah, that's true. That's good stuff. How can all of our Corkies get in touch with you? Where can they find your information as far as your podcast and all your social media handles?
Yeah, so podcast is Your Access Has Been Granted. You can find it on all major platforms: Apple Music, Spotify, Google Podcasts. The majority of my listeners come from Apple Podcasts. Anchor, if you use Anchor, you can find it on Anchor. Eventually I want to try to transition into doing this how you guys are doing it, and doing the video and recording at the same time, so that I can optimize my content. But yes, you can search the podcast on Your Access Has Been Granted on Apple Podcasts and all major platforms. My website is www.accessgrantedsolutions. I'm going to spell that because I spelled it differently. It's ACCESSGRNTD solution, no S.com. But if you go to my Instagram, which is Brittany Nicole ASG, you can hit the link in my bio, and the bio will take you to all these places. You don't even have to do anything. So I would direct you directly to my Instagram at Brittany Nicole ASG, and that's BritTanyNicoleASG on Instagram. And just hit the link in my bio, and the link tree has links to get to a 15-minute discovery call with me for coaching. It has separate links for all of the podcast platforms and a link to my website.
Great.
Perfect. Thank you so much for hanging out with us.
No, I thoroughly enjoyed this.
Yes, you have been amazing.
I did.
Yeah.
Thank y'all. This is really good.
Awesome. And we'll talk to you again, I'm sure.
Yes, I will come back whenever y'all want me to.
Ooh, don't say that.
I can go holler at y'all whenever y'all need me to.
Y'all heard it, Corkies. She told us we could holler at them.
Right.
Hello. Y'all holler at me. If they're not listening to y'all and y'all say y'all need me to come back, tell me, and I'll holler at them.
Okay.
They don't play about us. They about worse as them beehive people.
Period. Get at them. Tell them what's up.
All right, you guys.